Hi, my name is Surjo Banerjee and I'm the founder of Growth Squad. So, Growth Squad is an ROI driven full funnel growth agency. Now, what that means is we help businesses from lead generation through marketing activities to helping them close those deals by implementing proper sales processes. And we do that by bringing in all experts under one roof. And to help the startup community, we're doing short fireside chats to discuss key trends, tips, tricks, and challenges. And today, the topic that we are discussing is how to get attention from your real consumers. And to discuss that, we have Guillaume Kendall, who's the founder of the Attention Exchange. Hi, Guillaume. Thank you so much for joining today.
Hey, Surjo. No problem. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Great. So let's start with a quick introduction about yourself and what Attention Exchange is all about.
Sure. So my name's Guillaume. People call me G, and I'm founder of the Attention Exchange. The Attention Exchange is really a fintech that's coming at digital marketing from a very different angle. We use consent-driven transaction data. So our audience give us access to their spending behavior in order to match them with relevant brands based on their spending instead of their browsing. So fundamentally, yeah, we're a platform where people exchange data for value and their attention to it. So that's what we do. We're an early stage startup. We're only a couple of years old. We've received just over 700,000 of funding to date. We have an app out in the marketplace, 30,000 users currently on the platform, and just getting ready to scale some exciting new initiatives as we speak.
Great. And congratulations for all the fundraising so far. Let's start off with the problem. What do you think is the problem the advertising industry is facing right now?
Okay. There isn't one problem the digital advertising industry is facing. There's many. And I don't come from advertising, but as a pure consumer of advertising, because we all consume it, I think it's some frightening stat, like 6,000 advertising messages a day are displayed across your browsing experience, right? That's a lot. Banner adverts, pop-up adverts, those annoying little videos with tiny gray X's. You're trying to get out the way, trying to read something. But it's a mess. And although, despite all this, it's a $600 billion market where ultimately the end objective is to get someone to see something, remember it, and take an action on it. So let's take some of those challenges by each use case. I guess the first thing is it's not a particularly competitive market in terms of the opportunities you have to get attention. You pretty much have Google, Facebook, and programmatic ads, right? That's it. So if you're a brand and you want to sell your product, those are people you're going to pay. And going back to investment, it's a stat again that about 30% in every dollar spent in investment in a business goes straight back to Google and Facebook in advertising costs. Right. So that's the first thing. There's not many options. The second one is because there's not many options, everybody is advertising on Google, Facebook, and programmatic. Everybody. So it's an absolutely crowded marketplace, and consumers have become entirely blind and almost immune to it. I'm sure you won't remember the last advert you saw. The typical experience being on YouTube, you're just waiting for the skip button to turn on so that you can skip. That's it. And so the more this sort of went on, the more I thought there's a number of challenges here, just from the pure relationship of an advertiser not having to annoy a consumer to get their attention. Then you add the fact that, and this is relatively new to me, the more I've dug in, the more the problems I've been unpacking all these problems, is that ad fraud is a thing. I had no idea, but there's over $100 billion of lost revenue to ad fraud. So advertisers put money in Google, Facebook, and programmatic, and lots of it disappears down various black holes and nefarious other things. And apparently it's the second largest criminal enterprise on the planet, right? After the drugs trade is ad fraud. And it's just part of the, you just know some of your money's going to get lost. That's just part part of the game. What that means in reality is people are basically setting up websites where adverts are being displayed automatically through the networks, and there's not real people on those websites. They're just bots or rows of phones that people are clicking to fake engagement, increase the value, make money for themselves. There's that. So, and Elon Musk recently, before he acquired Twitter, made the point about saying he wasn't sure how many bots were on Twitter. The answer is millions. Like, it's fraught with, because there's not many high level barrier to entry in terms of verifying yourself as a human. And then the last thing, which again, I hadn't really thought about before I started this business, is the amount of wastage. So not just about ad fraud, but if it was a country, digital advertising would be the 6th biggest polluter on the planet, right? It's a bigger carbon consumer than the aviation industry. Because you think about the 6,000 messages you see a day, they're taking energy, right? They started somewhere, and to transfer that message from here to your phone, to your screen, to wherever you are, takes energy, and energy is carbon. So it's an enormous polluter. And to bring this into context, we worked with a carbon negative sneaker brand called Elliott Footwear, and we ran their video campaign on our platform and on Facebook. And on Facebook, to get the same number of clicks, right, to their website, which is ultimately what they're trying to do, is get people to go onto their website and see their shoes and buy their shoes. It took Facebook 1.1 million impressions. We did the exact same number of clicks with 5,000 individual human consumers that we knew were human because they have a bank account. And over 1,000% less carbon was used in that process, because we only need to hyper target certain people. So those are just some of the challenges digital advertising is facing. Hang on. Sorry. Okay. And then you've got this challenge that the regulators are coming in. Several things. GDPR came in, so people were more able to protect their data to some extent. You've got cookies are being replaced in Chrome, which is kind of the way that people are tracked around the web. And Apple brought out something called App Tracking Transparency, which meant that it's increasingly more difficult to track consumers as they move around. So everything that's currently being used to target you effectively is actually going to get even worse.
Yeah.
Those are the problems.
I think that gets very nicely to my next question. But before that, I think you were right in terms of the carbon emission. I was seeing a documentary, and they said for one Google search, you can light a bulb for 5 minutes. That's the energy consumption it takes for one Google search. So you're actually quite right on that. But I think when you're talking about, the various privacy issues that's come up and Apple introducing, what is the post-cookie world? I mean, because everything that we know as of today is tracking users, but there's a feeling that that's either going to end or that's going to deplete very soon. What does the world look like, or marketing world look like, after the post-cookie?
So a number of platforms already moved to cookieless, right? Chrome is actually one of the last remaining ones, but obviously it's a very successful browser. Lots of people use Chrome. And it's been delayed several times. I think the original date might have been in 2021, right? And then sort of COVID, we'll push it to 2022. And then, we're not quite ready, 2023. And it's a real problem. And some publishers have actually been taking Google to court. I think it's in Germany, because they just don't know how they'll be able to monetize their platforms without cookies. But of course, a lot of people are already trying to get ahead of the curve. And if I could summarize the way that people are looking at this, it's basically other ways to screw the consumer out of their data, right? How can we get around this? And I don't really understand the specifics, but basically there's some sort of server-to-server communication happening now, where the computers are talking directly rather than your device and other bits. But they're just trying to get around the problem to find another way to achieve the same objective, which is to track you around the web. Apple brought out, as I mentioned, App Tracking Transparency, and whilst it initially caused Facebook a hammering on their share price, it has recovered, and people aren't necessarily opting out as much as might have initially been feared. Apple's ad revenue is going through the roof. And so again, if I could, it's not just how people are getting around it now, it's actually just who's benefiting from your privacy. And the answer is it's moving around, but you're not ultimately. And so that's why we're so excited about open banking and putting that at the core of what we feel is the future post-cookie, post-tracking in ecosystem. Is if you control your data, who accesses it, and the value of that data to advertisers, then I think that's a better world. Now, I was going to say, so for those unfamiliar with open banking, because it's not as widely a known thing as I'd assumed people knew about, but it's when you connect your bank account and the data within it to other third parties outside your bank. A classic use case would be if you're boosting your credit score with Experian, let's say, there's a big ad campaign recently, you connect your bank and you get a few extra points on your credit score. The reason they're giving you that value is because they're taking all your data, they're packaging it up, and they're selling it to marketers to use on Facebook campaigns across the web. So we're doing it differently. We say we'll keep the data, we don't share it, we don't sell it, we enable advertisers to pay you because they know, we know your attention is valuable to that brand. And that's what we do. So we put the money in the consumer's pocket.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, glad you mentioned open banking. That's one of the most exciting framework or the technology that's come up recently in the UK. You can build so many products on top of that, but also for advertisers, it's real data. It's the real spend. It's not bots at the end of the day. You know that consumers, without naming a consumer or tracking a consumer, you know that these are the consumer or section of consumers spending in your competitive industry or, you know, with your competitors. My next question is though, okay, so attention is probably going to be one of the most priced commodity, because advertising needs some change. But when we're talking about startups, what brands really are looking for is a bottom line, because it's the revenue growth that they need. How does Attention Exchange provide that value to consumers or clients? Sorry.
Sure. So the first thing is that there's 0% wastage, right? It's impossible for people to create data in their bank account without earning or spending in a certain way. You can't say, I like Ferraris, I want to see Ferrari transact. It's impossible unless you go buy a Ferrari, right? Yeah. So that's the first thing. So there is just no wastage. Every single impression must be immutably valuable. It's because the data is not something you can manipulate or skew. The second thing is that ultimately, we know every single view is viewed by someone, as you mentioned, who spends in the right way. But when the consumer goes and buys that thing, we can demonstrate that unique ID saw the advert and then bought the product because we're connected real time to the bank account, right? So attribution is something that everyone else has struggled for decades, all right? And there's this constant friction between agencies, advertisers, and their customer. Oh, well, we put some on Facebook, we put some on Google, we put someone out of home, and it seems to have done okay. But which one's the right thing? And it's the classic adage of half my marketing budget works, I just don't know which half.
Which one, right? Yeah.
We can tell you this user saw a thing and they bought the product because we're connected. Now, that's another clear, transparent value piece. Not to say, of course, that other elements of the advertising campaign, be it out of home, social, and others, aren't also influencing that ultimate transaction. But the point is that we see the point of sale, and it doesn't have to be online. You could go into the high street. If I saw an advert for Costa Coffee and I go into Costa Coffee, bing, Costa Coffee, right? That's the data point. So that's the other value point we add to that. Obviously, Costa Coffee is not a startup, but we see those transactions. And the third and final thing is that it's just far less money spent getting far greater human traction. So going back to the example I mentioned earlier with Elliott Footwear, I'm just trying to bring up the exact stat. the cost per completed view on our platform was 10 pence, right? On Facebook, even though they got 1.1 million partial views or just in someone impressions, exactly. This is the point. It's an impression rather than a view. And even a view on social media is 50% of the pixels on 50% of the screen for a second, right? That's a view. That's how the advertising regulators define it. But anyway, so on ours was 10 pence, on Facebook was £2.99, right? So we're 2,890% more cost effective than Facebook from a completed view. And I think this is the point about startups and the real value we bring to them is most people have set a business up because they feel passionately about something. It's their baby, it's their brand, it's the thing that they, a bit like me, Attention Exchange, it's the thing that they feel passionate about. You can either go pay Google and Facebook to annoy people, lots of them, or you can go straight to consumers and share your message with them.
So this is great. I think we've discussed what the challenges are in the marketing industry as a whole. And I think there's quite a spot on view that you have that until now, agencies, when you're talking about any campaigns, hey, this is the number of likes we've got, this is the number of impressions we've got. But I think we need to take it one step further, because what brands really want is, if I'm spending a pound, how many clients are actually buying my product? What is the revenue that I'm getting? And it's great to see that a platform like yours, which can actually attribute that value. And I hope that keeps expanding. And as an industry, we learn more on that. My next point is very much on the lines of the content. We are constantly thrown content, and Attention Exchange is another platform where there'll be content there. My question is, how much does a good quality content matter? Because yes, your consumers or your users are getting incentivized to see a video, and that's fair enough. But how much does it matter that the quality of the content really has to be good, and it has to be, effective at the end of the day?
Sure. So we've seen a couple of patterns emerge. One of which we weren't expecting to see is that the longer the content, the more likely people are to click through. And it took us a while to figure that out, because in the other world, being TikTok and Facebook and Instagram else, if you don't have their attention within the first second, 3 seconds, you need to get your message across, your value proposition, but right, in 3, forget it. Right? But that's how you have to operate to capture. Our users aren't in the middle of doing something they were enjoying before being interrupted by a piece of promoted, sponsored, unskippable, pre-rolled content from an advertiser, right? Which I think is just it's a weirdly arrogant thing for advertisers to think they can just burst onto your screen and annoy you until you're able to skip them, right? It reminds me of the people who try and push you to subscribe to a charity or donate to a charity in the middle of the high street, just outside Liverpool Street Station. I was watching it the other day, and you just see people trying to avoid. And excuse me, just a half a second of your time, please. That's advertising online, right? Anyway, so the point is that our consumers are coming into a dedicated space where they know they've chosen to say, oh, there's some content available for me from brands that are relevant to my spending, and I'm going to get fairly rewarded for it. And it's not masses, right? They're not doing it for the cash. They're doing it because it's a bit of money, great, but actually it's interesting, nice content. And the content we've seen to perform the best is that's actually got a bit of premium quality feel to it. So when people have invested a few thousand or whatever into, actually it's all video for our platform, that does make a massive difference. Now, occasionally we've seen some of the funnier content perform well. Obviously you have full screen, but you have to bear in mind, you have the ability to narrate, tell a story, and you don't have to rush your message in the first few seconds. And it's the brands that have understood the different contextual environment in which this advert is being viewed that have done the best in terms of the returns they've seen from our platform.
Okay, so it's the context that actually matters at the end of the day as well. And I think fair point, where it's the user who is deciding to view the content rather than being content thrown at them. So it's whenever they are making a choice rather than not given a choice at the end of it.
Well, they've made two choices. They've chosen to share their data for this purpose, and then they've chosen to participate in the value exchange, rather than choosing to go watch a review of something they're enjoying on YouTube, and then, as you say, another ad. And they're everywhere now. You got banner adverts at the bottom, and the pre-rolled script. It almost makes you want to buy premium.
I mean, it does. I mean, I think instead of us wanting to buy YouTube Premium, you're forced to buy premium because you just want to get rid of the adverts at the end of the day. My final question to you is, do you think attention exchange, or the concept that you have created, is in some way going to replace the influencer marketing as we know it as of today?
So, I don't think they necessarily serve the same purpose. The end goal is the same, to get sales. But influencer marketing has been successful because of the authenticity of the value exchange. Of you follow someone because you trust and like them, or you like the content they create. And if they endorse brands for you, it's something that you're probably more receptive to paying attention to for a period of time. But of course, a lot of it does seem very forced, right? I'm a big fan of Diary of the CEO, right? With Stephen Bartlett. So the influencer piece, we've actually leveraged ourselves, right? So to get people to understand what we have and the value in it, we've got people to say, hey guys, Google and Facebook are taking all your money. It belongs to you. Download the attention exchange, and connect your bank to monetize your attention. It's worked well with influencers. But, so no, I don't think we'll replace it. But the big thing that what I think is important when you're talking about influencer marketing is that actually people have to expose themselves online to become an influencer, right?
Yeah.
The amount that they share about themselves, their personality, their friends, their family, and we've had cases where some TikTok family, had their house burnt down. You've had influencers that have terrible mental health problems and all sorts. These people that lust after fame, and the trappings of it, which includes endorsements, comes with a bunch of risk. What we enable people to do is let their money and their financial data influence for them. You don't have to, no one has to see your face. No one knows your name. No, I just know you buy Costa Coffee and I'm Starbucks and I want to talk to you.
Yeah.
And I go direct. So this is the point. And so I think both have a different play, and both have a position, but we're pushing quite hard on the fact that ultimately it's down to the wallet spend. People vote in the end with their card, and there's lots of influencers out there. They have lots of great followings, but even within that, as you know, as we discussed earlier, some will be bots, some will be duplicate accounts, some will be your baby logged into YouTube for you, being kept quiet and just watching the ads. Right? And that baby's not going to buy anything.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Yeah, no, this is great. I think it was one of the very interesting conversation, because I've worked in advertising for 7 years in my past job, and attention has been a very big buzzword. But it didn't make much sense, because everything we do is to get attention on the industry. But no, I think this is great. Thank you so much, Guillaume. I think I'm sure that people watching this video will learn quite a lot about your company, but also what they need to do going forward and prepare themselves, in the advertising world. But thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks, Sergio.